So today I will present my research topic, Reconstructing Limnological and Hydrological Change during the Late Glacial to Early Holocene and Tracking the Western United States Precipitation Dipole using sediments from Barley Lake. First and foremost, I would like to acknowledge the Round Valley Indian tribes, specifically the Northern Ukiah indigenous population, who are the original stewards of the land I conducted my research on. Today, I will provide an introduction, background, methods, results, a discussion of our results, conclusions, and lastly, acknowledgements. Water resources are of high importance to the state of California. However, California faces a freshwater availability crisis. In the figure on the right, the most recent U.S. Drought Monitor Index indicates that the majority of California is experiencing drought conditions right now. Moreover, future climate projections suggest that California will experience less winter snowpack, earlier seasonal runoff, and longer, more severe droughts. Changes in freshwater resources may have detrimental impacts on society, economics, and the environment. Additionally, California water resources are highly susceptible to climate change. The modern distribution of precipitation in the Western United States is characterized by a north-south antiphase pattern as a result of the winter season precipitation dipole, also known as the Western United States Precipitation Dipole. The dipole's latitudinal position is centered at 40 degrees north latitude. However, the position is dynamic and migrates north and south over time. This figure is from WISE 2010, and it illustrates the relationship between Southern Oscillation Index, an indicator of El Nino and La Nina, and precipitation, which clearly illustrates the north-south opposing precipitation dipole. As a result, the position of the dipole dictates the timing and location of rainfall in the Western United States. Characterizing the spatiotemporal variability of precipitation is essential in water-stressed regions such as California. Moreover, understanding the spatiotemporal characteristics and drivers of past water history can help address California's water-related challenges. More specifically, how and why abrupt changes in water availability occur and over what timescales. To better understand California's past climate and hydrologic history, we look to Earth's paleo archives. Paleo records provide insight to better understand and predict present and future climate change. Lakes are important archives that record past hydrological processes and environmental conditions. Lake sediments record a lake's limnology and hydrology by preserving physical, chemical, and biological signals over time. To better understand California's past and future hydrologic variability, we focus on a new sediment record from Barley Lake, California, that spans 12,000 to 8,000 cal years before present. This period is also known as the Late Glacial to Holocene transition, which is a significant point in global environmental change as climate, hydroclimate, and vegetation experience significant changes. The Late Glacial also covers the Younger Dryas Chronozone, which is a 1,200-year return to near glacial conditions and marked the end of the Pleistocene and the onset of the modern interglacial, also known as the Holocene. As a result, Barley Lake sediments can record the timing, climatic expression, and hydroclimatic signal of Northern California during the Late Glacial to Early Holocene. The objectives of this thesis are to characterize the limnological and hydrological variability at Barley Lake during the Late Glacial Younger Dryas to Early Holocene, and to determine the significant climate drivers influencing limnologic and hydroclimatic change at Barley Lake. And lastly, to determine the response of the precipitation dipole in California across the Younger Dryas via site-to-site comparison. We have three working hypotheses. One, that the limnological and hydrological conditions at Barley Lake are characterized by a robust shift marking the late glacial Younger Dryas to early Holocene transition from a wetter, lower productivity conditions during the late glacial Younger Dryas to drier, higher productivity conditions during the early Holocene. 2, the major forcings driving hydrologic change at Barley Lake are shifts in the winter storm track, resulting in a wetter northwest and a drier southwest, which are modulated by significant atmospheric circulation changes associated with the reduction of the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, changes in sea surface temperatures, and changes in summer-winter insolation. And 3, the Barley Lake hydroclimate record will be synchronous with northern sites and asynchronous with southern sites, marking distinct changes in the position of the Western United States precipitation dipole. Next, we'll cover some background information. Study site. Barley Lake is a landslide-formed lake located in the North Coast ranges of California, specifically in Mendocino County. It is located at an elevation of 1,658 meters above sea level and has a steep-sided catchment. The lake contains an ephemeral outlet that denotes the elevation of its spillover point. Moreover, there are 3 distinct ephemeral inlets in Barley Lake's northern catchment. However, they were not active at the time of pouring. The lake basin sits on late Pleistocene to Holocene serpentinite talus landslide deposits, and the catchment is situated on ultramafic rocks. The maximum lake depth at the time of pouring was 0.3 meters, so it wasn't substantially deep. We actually walked on the lake to collect our sediment. But there is a limit to tree, like a defined limit to trees 2 meters above the present day lake level that defines the maximum historical lake level, demonstrating that Barley Lake was once a substantially deeper lake. Barley Lake's hydrologic balance depends on direct precipitation, runoff from the surrounding watershed, groundwater flow, winter snowpack observed via Google Earth imagery, and water leaves Barley Lake via evaporation, groundwater flow, and an ephemeral outlet located at the lake's southeast section. Modern climate setting. Coastal California's modern climate is Mediterranean with cool, wet winters and hot, dry summers. Additionally, gridded surface meteorological data provides temperature and precipitation averages of Mendocino County, where Barley Lake is located. This shows that summer precipitation accounts for 2.6 centimeters and winter precipitation accounts for 131 centimeters. This indicates that we have a unimodal precipitation pattern at Barley Lake. Therefore, the hydrologic budget at Barley Lake is the result of winter season precipitation and summer evaporation. The unimodal precipitation pattern is influenced by Pacific frontal storms controlled by pressure cells, the El Niño Southern Oscillation, the Pacific Decadal Oscillation. Moreover, the combination of a La Niña ENSO phase in concert with a negative PDO phase results in more precipitation in the study site region. Atmospheric rivers are the primary type of winter storm that delivers water to the Western United States and fills basins. The amount of precipitation that an atmospheric river delivers is comparable to the amount that a hurricane delivers, which is a lot. Superimposed on this precipitation regime is the Western United States precipitation dipole. It is the primary hydrologic feature in California winter climatology that influences the annual timing and location of rainfall. In California, the center of the transition zone ranges between 35 to 44 degrees north latitude and has remained relatively stationary at approximately 40 degrees north latitude for the past 500 years. A site-to-site comparison of hydrologically sensitive records can delineate the shifts in the precipitation dipole, such as during the Younger Dryas, where spatial hydroclimatic conditions remain unknown. Previous research at Barley Lake. Previous research includes a 7,000-year pollen reconstruction by West 1990 and 1993, which revealed that vegetation changes were strong indicators of past climate and hydrologic change. From about 7,000 to 4,000 years ago, the lake region was characterized as an oak-dominated forest. And from 4,000 years to present, the records observed increasing pine assemblages. However, these earlier studies have low resolution and are poorly dated and have limited temporal range. As a result, the paleoclimate conditions remain unclear at Barley Lake during the late Glacial to early Holocene. Late Glacial to early Holocene regional paleoclimate. Briles et al. Provided a comprehensive summary of late glacial through modern vegetation and fire reconstructions from Northern California and Southern Oregon. In summary, the regional paleoproxy studies indicated that there was a transition from a wetter, colder late glacial to a warmer, drier early Holocene with site and proxy-specific younger Dryas signals. And we'll see that later on today. Drivers of deglacial hydroclimate include internal forcing mechanisms, such as retreating ice sheets, changes in insolation, changes in the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, shifts in the intertropical convergence zone. External forcings include solar variability, solar terrestrial interactions, and the extraterrestrial impacts. And my favorite is the younger Dryas impact hypothesis. Next, I will provide a brief overview of the methods used to collect our research, our data. First, we have sediment collection. We collected 4 cores using a Russian coring system. We extruded, described, and photographed the cores in the field and transported them to Cal State Fullerton for cold storage and pending analyses. As you can see here in this figure, this is what a Russian coring system looks like, and that's the process in which we collect sediments. Age control. Age control was determined from 12 samples of discrete organics, such as charcoal, pine needles, or seeds, via accelerator mass spectrometry. Our samples underwent an acid-base acid pretreatment to remove contamination, combustion to obtain carbon dioxide, cryogenic purification to isolate our CO2, and then reduced to graphite and pressed for analysis at the Keck Carbon Cycle Accelerometer Mass Spectrometry Laboratory at UC Irvine. There's also another little video of what the cryogenic process looks like for graphitization. And so I've been 3 times and it's an amazing experience. I would love to do that again. Next for methods are magnetic susceptibility. We processed and analyzed magnetic susceptibility at 1 centimeter contiguous intervals and measured them using a Barrington magnetic susceptibility meter. Next, we analyzed for total organic matter and total carbonate via the loss on ignition method from Dean 1974. Samples were analyzed at 1 centimeter contiguous intervals, dried at 105 degrees Celsius to remove water content, transferred to pre-measured crucibles, and weighed again to record the initial weight. Samples were placed in a muffle furnace for 550 degrees Celsius to remove organic matter and 950 degrees Celsius to remove total carbonates. The percent TOM and percent TC were calculated after each LOI step, respectively, and calculated as percentages of dry weight. Grain size variations. Grain size was determined at 2 centimeter intervals from 660 to 450 centimeters and 1 centimeter contiguous intervals from 750 to 660 centimeters. Sediments were pre-treated with hydrogen peroxide to remove organic matter, hydrochloric acid to remove carbonates, and sodium hydroxide to remove biogenic silica. Grain size is measured using a Malvern Master Sizer 2000 laser diffraction grain size analyzer coupled to a Hydro G2000 large volume sample dispersion unit, as pictured here. The grain size data was also divided into 10 grain size intervals based on the Wentworth classification scale. Next, we analyzed for bulk carbon isotopic composition and percent total organic carbon. We analyzed them at 5 centimeter intervals from 680 to 450 centimeters, and every other centimeter from 749 to 685 centimeters. Samples were acidified, dried, and homogenized. And samples were analyzed in triplicates using a Picaro-Costech combustion module coupled to a cavity ring down spectrometer. Next, we analyzed for multivariate statistics. Multivariate statistical analysis was completed using primer E on depths that included data from each respective proxy signals. A hierarchical cluster analysis was performed to group samples based on similar characteristics. The measured Euclidean distance was measured to separate samples into representative groups via visual analysis. An analysis of similarities was completed to determine the significance level of the groups determined by cluster analysis. An R value close to 1 suggests that the determined groups are significantly different. A principal component analysis was then completed to generate a principal component scatter plot using the first and second principal component eigenvectors, which reveals which proxy most influences the variability of the data. And lastly, compilation of paleoclimate records. To evaluate the hydroclimate of the Western United States during the Younger Dryas, we compared the study with other published hydrologically sensitive records. Our site comparison criteria are both spatially and temporally defined. We established the spatial criteria to focus on California only, to limit the number of sites to a reasonable amount. Temporally, we focus on the Younger Dryas, and we also have criteria for comparison. At a minimum, sites must have 3 age control points, 1 before the initiation of the Younger Dryas, 1 during the Younger Dryas, and 1 age control point at the end of the Younger Dryas, or 1,000 years later. Moreover, we recalibrated ages for paleoclimate records that were published using uncalibrated or older calibration models before INTCAL 13. And lastly, the hydroclimatic signal during the Younger Dryas was based on the interpretations of the original authors. Now I will discuss our results. We collected a total of 7.5 meters from Barley Lake Core 2, the core that we use in this study. However, this study focuses on a subsection of Core 2, which includes the bottom 2.8 meters of the core, from 4.7 to 7.5 meters. The Core 2 sediment is characterized by multicolored brown, organic rich sediment with occasional faint darker brown to dark brown red laminae. Moreover, there is a distinct change to interbedded light gray and dark brown laminations. And the base of the core is characterized by gray to gray-black laminae and is distinctly coarser. Occasionally, there are macroorganics observed throughout the core, such as pine needles and charcoal. This table shows our radiocarbon dating results for the subsection of Core 2. Our record also meets the temporal criteria for site-to-site analysis because it contains an age control point before, during, and after the Younger Dryas. An age model was constructed using the calibrated samples and Bayesian statistics with Bacon version 2.2 age modeling. The age model indicates that the subsection from Barley Lake 750 to 474 centimeters spans 12,900 to about 8,100 calendar years before present. And so we have robust age control for site-to-site comparison. So these are our overall results for all of our data. We have our grain size data, our bulk organic carbon isotopes and percent total organic carbon data, our loss on ignition data, which includes percent total organic matter, percent total carbonate, and percent non-carbonate inorganic matter, and magnetic susceptibility. We know that our record spans the late glacial to younger Dryas to early Holocene, and we observe abrupt shifts throughout our data set. However, we decided to conduct statistical analyses on our data to group samples based on similar characteristics and determine the proxies that most influence the variability of the data. So here are our statistical analyses results. First, we conducted a hierarchical agglomerative clustering analysis that created a hierarchical agglomerative clustering diagram. The hierarchical agglomerative clustering diagram determined that the data is best represented by a total of 4 cluster groups or units. And the units contain samples that are stratigraphically close with the exception of a few outliers. Moreover, the sample statistic R value for the analysis of similarities is 0.878, indicating that units 1 through 4 are significantly different from one another. Unit 4 contains samples from 722 to 691 centimeters, and 2 outliers from at 550 to 730 centimeters. Unit 3 consists of the majority of the samples in our data set between 690 to 476 centimeters, with 1 outlier at 734 centimeters. Unit 2 consists of mostly basal samples between 750 to 725 centimeters. And Unit 1 consists of 2 samples between 643 centimeters to 628 centimeters and fall within Unit 3. The principal component analysis scatter plot demonstrates that the samples in Units 1 through 4 are distinguished by the first principal component vector, eigenvector, which follows the line of the non-carbonate inorganic matter. And this accounts for 59% of the variability in our data. The samples are further distinguished by the second principal component eigenvector, which follows the direction of our clay. This accounts for 21% of the variability of our data. As you can see, the statistical units are significantly different from each in respect to the proxies that most influence their respective depths. Moreover, Unit 3 contains the majority of the samples in our data set. As a result, we decided to run additional analyses to further separate Unit 3. We conducted another hierarchical agglomerative clustering analysis. We determined that the data is best represented by a total of 6 cluster groups. The analysis of similarities indicates that the subunits are moderately different from one another at a value of 0.598. Unit 3B contains samples from 575 to 476 centimeters. And Unit 3D contains samples from 690 to 576 centimeters. The other 4 groups consisted of only 1 to 2 data points, so we consider them as outliers and didn't include them as groups. The principal component analysis scatter plot demonstrates that the samples in Units 3B and 3D are clearly distinct from one another with respect to the first principal component and the direction of the percent total organic matter line. And this accounts for a total of 40% of the variation in the data. The samples are further distinguished by the second principal component eigenvector, which follows the direction of the percent silt and accounts for 25.8% of the variability in the data. And lastly, the compilation of hydrological records. A total of 29 published hydrologically sensitive records spanning the late glacial to early Holocene were assessed. 13 sites did not require recalibration because they were published using INCAL or INCAL 13 or newer. However, only 8 of these sites met our temporal criteria for comparison. 16 sites required recalibration because they were published with records. They were published using uncalibrated or older calibration models. Of the 16 recalibrated records, only 4 met our temporal criteria for site-to-site comparison. A recalibration table can be found on table 14 of my thesis, if you're interested. Overall, 12 of the 29 paleoclimate records meet our age criteria, and we denote them as MAC sites. Let's see. Okay, and these MAC sites, we label them as these diamonds, large diamonds, and they include these sites here. For full chronological details, interpretations, and references for each of these records, you can read my thesis. The remaining 17 paleoclimate records did not meet age criteria, and we denote them as DN MAC sites. However, these sites are included in the hydrologic reconstruction just for reference so that we can see what the large scale hydroclimatic variability within the younger Dryas. The DN MAC sites are labeled as small squares. Now we'll move on to our discussion. Proxy interpretations. We interpret high sand to indicate increased runoff and a relatively wet climate and vice versa for low sand. Our percent clay is interpreted to represent high lake level, where high clay values, or lake level, where high values indicate a high lake level and low values indicate a low lake level. Our total organic matter is used to interpret productivity, where high values indicate higher productivity and low values indicate lower productivity. Our magnetic susceptibility values are used to interpret runoff during the late glacial portion, and as a result, a relatively wetter climate, and vice versa. And our bulk carbon isotopic composition are used to also infer our productivity signal, where high values indicate low productivity and low values indicate high productivity. So now that we have established our Thesis units and proxy interpretations, let's discuss the limnologic and hydrologic variability at Barley Lake. That's what you all came for. So Thesis Unit 2 represents the oldest unit that spans the late glacial to early Younger Dryas, from about 12,900 to 12,330 calendar years before present. It is associated with the lowest average percent TOM and highest average values for bulk organic carbon isotopes, reflecting low productivity in the limnological environment. Also, statistical unit 2 is comprised of the lowest average percent clay. However, it also has anomalously high percent sand values. And so we cautiously interpret this as a transgressive, fluctuating, relatively deep lake status. And as a result, increased runoff as well, based on the magnetic susceptibility and sand data, and therefore wet conditions during the late glacial early Younger Dryas. Thesis Unit 2 represents the second oldest Thesis unit that spans 12,250 to 11,530 years, calendar years before present. It is associated with low average percent total organic matter values and high average bulk organic carbon isotopes, reflecting low productivity in the limnological environment. It also has the highest average percent clay content, suggesting a deep lake status. and average sand and high average percent values indicating increased runoff and a wetter hydrological conditions. Thesis unit, I'm going to drink some water really quickly. Okay, I'm back. Thesis Unit 3D spans the early Holocene Part 1 from 11,500 to 10,000 calendar years before present. It contains the highest average percent total organic matter and low average bulk organic carbon isotopes, reflecting high productivity. Additionally, is correlated with the lowest average percent clay values that remain steady throughout the section, suggesting a relatively shallow and stable lake status. Moreover, it has low average percent clay values, which indicates diminished runoff, and therefore drier climate conditions. And lastly, Thesis Unit 3B spans the early Holocene Part 2 from 10,000 to 8,100 calendar years before present. It is correlated with high average percent total organic matter values and lowest average bulk organic isotope data, reflecting high productivity in the limnological environment. Moreover, the percent clay values are low, but increase in value up the core, suggesting a shallow but transgressive fluctuating lake level status. Moreover, Thesis Unit 3B contains the lowest average percent sand values, which illustrates diminished runoff. And so we interpret that as drier conditions. So using the combination of statistical Thesis units, hydrological and limnological proxies, and defined interpretations for Barley Lake, we infer two distinct lake environments spanning the late glacial Younger Dryas to early Holocene. The first lake environment is the late glacial Younger Dryas Lake, which is a variably deep lake that has lower productivity. And we see that with variably high clay content, low sediment organic matter, and an increased magnetic signature, suggesting increased runoff, a variably deep lake, and low productivity. So here's a schematic to make it make more sense to you guys. Second, we have an early Holocene lake, which is variably shallow, has higher productivity, and decreased runoff. And we infer this from variable to low clay content, high sediment organic matter, and decreased magnetic signal and sand content into the profundal zone. Okay, so Barley Lake's response to shifts between glacial and to interglacial climate regimes is reflected in its response to changing environmental conditions, which is influenced by the lake system productivity and sedimentation. Overall, the new Barley Lake sediment record fills a significant gap of paleoclimate in Northern California. Remarkably, the timing of Barley Lake regime shifts is similar to abrupt changes in independent paleo archives throughout California and reflects a consistent response to changing glacial and interglacial climates. To extend the knowledge of the Western United States precipitation dipole during the Younger Dryas, we compare the Barley Lake hydroclimate record to 29 hydroclimate sensitive paleo archives in California. We constrain the precipitation dipole by assessing the hydrologic response of regional sites and their relationship relative to each other, in phase versus out of phase. So first, I'll show you guys the max sites that meet our age criteria for robust site-to-site comparison. We highlight the sites based on their hydrologic response, where red indicates dry, a dry Younger Dryas, yellow indicates a variably wet dry Younger Dryas, and blue indicates a wet Younger Dryas. The orange line here indicates the average position of the precipitation dipole and its northern and southern boundaries. As we can observe from our compilation, the records show a clear north-south opposing pattern of hydroclimate, where northern sites above 35 degrees north latitude indicate wet conditions, and sites below 35 degrees north latitude indicate dry conditions. And so this boundary is located at the southern boundary of the historical precipitation dipole from WISE 2016. To observe the overall hydroclimatic variability of the Younger Dryas, we include the DN max sites into our reconstruction for reference. The DN max sites are also colored according to the labels that I explained earlier, and you can see them here in the figure as well. So wet conditions at Barley Lake are in phase with sites above 35 degrees north latitude and out of phase with sites below 35 degrees north latitude. These relationships mark a clear southern shift in the north-south dipole during the Younger Dryas that is centered at 35 degrees north latitude. A closer look into the multiphasic variability of the Younger Dryas shows that sites located between 35 to 38 degrees north showed evidence for a two-part Younger Dryas, suggesting the transition zone of the dipole shifted during the Younger Dryas. Notably, sites situated south of Barley Lake between 35 to 38 degrees north latitude revealed wetter hydroclimate conditions during the beginning of the Younger Dryas, followed by a transition to drier hydroclimate conditions during the late Younger Dryas, demonstrating that the dipole's transition zone was positioned south at 35 degrees north latitude during the early Younger Dryas. However, it migrated north during the mid to late Younger Dryas. Overall, the precipitation dipole during the Younger Dryas suggests that it was persistently positioned below the 500-year average at 40 degrees latitude and centered around 35 degrees during the early Younger Dryas and between 36 to 38 degrees north latitude during the late Younger Dryas. To evaluate potential climate forcings, we compare our data with proxy-based and modeling studies to explain mechanisms responsible for hydroclimate variability during the late glacial, Younger Dryas to early Holocene. Trends observed in Barley Lake sediments show similarity to the GIPS record, the ODP SST reconstruction record, and the stable isotopic record and the GIPS2 reconstruction of temperature. And so together, these records highlight complex ocean atmosphere dynamics that influence hydrologic variability in Northern California during the late glacial Younger Dryas to early Holocene, including changes in ice sheets, sea surface temperatures, and AMOC variability. Lastly, the reorganization of ocean and atmospheric circulation has been associated with changes in insolation. As a result, we compare summer and winter insolation at 39 degrees north latitude, and we see a strong trend in total organic matter and summer insolation. As a result, we contend that insolation forcing may play a more dominant role in determining the hydrologic state of Holocene lakes. And conclusions. The multi-proxy sediment record from Barley Lake provides a well-dated, continuous, highly resolved, multi-decadal, limnological, and hydrological history from Northern California, spanning late glacial Younger Dryas into the early Holocene. The results from this study have yielded the following conclusions to the three working hypotheses. We accepted hypothesis number 1 as true. Using our multi-proxy sedimentology-based paleoclimate reconstruction, we infer a two-state lake history, a variably deep, lower productivity lake during the late glacial Younger Dryas, and a variably shallow, higher productivity lake during the early Holocene. Second, we accept our second hypothesis as true. Our comparison to the NGRIP oxygen record, the meter rise record of Atlantic meridional returning circulation, and sea surface reconstructions suggest that large-scale changes in lake conditions across the late glacial Younger Dryas to early Holocene transition are driven by complex ocean atmospheric restructuring associated with the reduction in the Atlantic meridional returning circulation and overall changes in sea surface temperatures, as well as ice sheet retreat coupled to changing summer-winter insulation. And lastly, we deemed our third hypothesis as false. Sites situated south of Barley Lake between 40 to 35 degrees north latitude revealed a wetter or variably wetter hydrologic response during the Younger Dryas, and therefore demonstrated that the transition zone migrated south during Younger Dryas, and that Barley Lake was actually in phase with them, as opposed to out of phase as what we had hypothesized. So I'd like to recognize the funding that received to conduct this research. This project was supported by the NSF grant to Dr. Kirby, Dr. Carlin, Dr. Ramazan, Dr. Nichols, and Dr. Glenn McDonald. Additional funding and support were provided by the Graduate Equity Fellowship, the Giles C. Brown Graduate Student Travel Grant, Los Angeles Basin Geological Society Scholarship, the GSA Onto the Future Travel Grant, the PACLIM Student Travel Grant, as well as training from LACOR. I would like to acknowledge my thesis advisor, Dr. Matt Kirby, for being an amazing mentor and always being super patient with me because I took quite a while to do this thesis, but I'm really happy with my experience here. You have provided a lot of opportunities for me to, go coring and career opportunities. So I'm very thankful for your mentorship and your guidance during these formative years. I wouldn't be the scientist I am today without all of your guidance and support. So thank you very much. And also Dr. Nicole Bunoso, who helped me with the statistics. I had no idea what I was doing, but thank you so much. And also thank you for all of our talks together about perseverance. You're a great role model for scientists. And also thank you to my other committee member, sorry, Nicole's also my committee member, but thank you to my other committee member, Dr. Carlin. He was always there on the phone ready for me when I was panicking in the lab about something wrong with the instrumentation. So thank you so much for being there, and also thank you for all of your encouragement in the writing process. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Salvin at UC Irvine, who helped us with radiocarbon dating and provided training in the pretreatment process, Dr. Riza Ramazan and Dr. Kevin Nichols, who helped with our age modeling and who are going to help with the second publication of the Barley Lake compilation, our precipitation dipole study. And also to Dr. Glenn McDonald, who also spearheaded this project and helped a lot in the field, providing a lot of guidance and knowledge and training on geography. I thought that was an amazing experience. So thank you very much. I'd also like to acknowledge Dr. Sean Lloyd, who helped me with my bulk isotopic carbon data. Thank you for all of your support. And also to Dr. Natalie Birchton, who was my faculty mentor for the Graduate Equity Program. Thank you for all of your advice when I was attending my first conference and had no idea what to expect. That really helped me a lot. And also to Dr. Laura Stevens, who basically paved my way to paleoclimate. She got me interested in studying paleoclimate. She provided tremendous resources and opportunities for me. And so I wouldn't be here today without her mentorship as well. And also to Dr. Jeff Knott, who was a great mentor when I was a teaching assistant and who vouched for me to earn the Outstanding Graduate Teaching Associate Award. I really do have a passion for teaching, and I'm so grateful that you supported and nominated me for that. So thank you very much for all your guidance. I'd also like to thank the Barley Lake research crew, especially Ben Newman, Jiwoo Han, and Judith Avila, for all of your hard work. Coring is not easy, so it's important to maintain a good attitude and to be ready just to work because they are hard, long days to collect that sediment. So thank you guys for all of your support. And also I'm grateful for all of my friends and family, all of my supportive friends and family. You know who you are, and if you're not pictured here, I'm sorry. But thank you all for supporting my journey. I couldn't be here without every single one of you supporting me. So thank you very much.